Now that we've covered how to break up a playbook into a role and how to call it in your main playbook, this lesson will cover role dependencies. As I mentioned previously, the meta main YAML file is where you would specify any role dependencies for your current role. This means that if you need a certain role to have run on your host before you run this role, then that's a dependency. The syntax for this is pretty simple. So in my meta main YAML file, I would just go to the dependency section and specify the role that I want to run. So right now I'm in the meta directory. I'm just going to open up the main YAML file and I'm going to search for dependencies, which is right at the end. Then I'm going to specify the role that I want to call, which in this case is just the Apache role. So this is just a basic example of declaring a role dependency, but if I also want to include parameters, I can make this look a little fancier and do role Apache when Ansible OS family is equal to Red Hat, close out my brackets. And that would be an example of adding in a conditional statement into my role dependency declaration. Now, by default, role dependencies are going to get executed before the role that depends on them. And role dependencies are also recursive. So those roles that you're executing can also have dependencies, which means that those would also get executed. So, a good question before we move on is why do you need to specify role dependencies at all, especially if you're calling all the roles you need to run in your main playbook? So, I like to think of role dependencies as a best practice, especially if your playbooks are fluid and you're rotating out which roles you're running in your main playbook at any given time. It just ensures that you don't accidentally include a role that requires another role before running it. It's like your role backup plan. So to show you how this looks, I'm going to exit out of this file and I'm going to go ahead and create another role in my roles folder called Apache so that it won't error out on me here when I actually try to run it. So Ansible Galaxy init Apache. And I'm basically going to go into my task file here and do a few Apache tasks. Open up that main YAML file and I'm going to include some tasks in here. So first thing, I'm going to install Apache and FirewallD. Yum name equals item, state equals present. With items, HTTPD, FirewallD. My next task will be to start FirewallD now that I've installed it. Service name equals FirewallD, state equals started, enabled equals yes. Now that that's started, I can insert a firewall rule for Apache. So I'll use the firewall D module. I'll set the port to a variable, call that HTTPD underscore port. Make sure that this is permanent, set the state of the rule to enabled and make it kick in immediately here. And then my last task will be to start Apache. So I'll use that service module again. We already included this as a dependency for our MariaDB role to ensure that it gets run first. So basically, when I run it, it's just going to run the role as if it wasn't even a dependency. It's not going to indicate that it's a dependency. It's just going to run the role as if we had declared it normally in the main playbook. So I'll save this and I'm going to go define my HTTPD port variable real quick. So I'll go up into VARs and open up the main YAML file there, set HTTPD underscore port to 80, save that. And now I'm going to go ahead and run my main playbook file. So Ansible dash playbook dash I host site YAML. It starts right away with the common role because that was specified first. But then once it gets to the MariaDB role, we've got the Apache tasks coming back okay. And then it's going to move right onto the MariaDB tasks. So that's how we know that the role dependency is kicked in.